Welcome to a new CG PIlls video from Nigel. This is the first video about a GeoGen free Courseware. We're going to use the alpha version, obviously, so we'll take care about new features, new versions, step by step. So the basic idea is to start creating a terrain from scratch. So today we are going to talk about terrain. So it is still just an introduction. So, we are going to create a new project. When we have a new project, we have something from scratch created by default. So we have a warp node, we have base, we have the occlusion, we have the colorize and the renderer. So it is something that is working. So the idea is to remove the warp noise and starting from scratch from the base. The base essentially is a basic terrain. You see that we have something. We can play with the parameters just to understand what's going on. So you know that we can move the noise that is creating the terrain. Actually, we can rotate it. We have the possibility to move also the pivot used by the rotation. We can scale the noise. So you see that we can have a smaller scale terrain or maybe a bigger one. So you are free to decide how to use it. We can rise up the altitude, we can warp the altitude, and we will see how it can be used using the warping. So actually it is doing nothing because we have the warp. The warp is essentially a feature that is able to make a distortion about the heightmap we are creating. And then we have the offset, so you see that the entire terrain is higher or lower. And then we have the roughness, so it is maybe smoother or we have more roughness. And then about the shape, we have the possibility to choose between different shape. We are using the mountain ridge that is going to simulate something like mountains, as you can see. So let's go to scale a little bit. Let's move the sun. Okay, so maybe just a little bit more on this side. Okay, in this case you see that we have parameters, so we can control the smoothness, we can control the seed. So using the seed we have a new noise version, and we have the possibility to have more details or less details. Okay, and then we have also the possibility to control the shape. So if we change this graph, you see that we are going to completely control how the terrain looks, how the noise it is looking. Okay, so you have also some basic default value there you can choose from. We have other values like the base, that's essentially a really simple one. We have the cliff, it is going to simulate something like a cliff. And what about this one? You see that we have the chaos to make it more random. If we have the chaos, we can scale the randomness. And then again, we have the altitude to decide which part is the cliff. And then the details over the cliff. And again, we can decide right mouse button, let's say Bezier, and we can go to change, for example, again, how it looks. So you see that you can create something really complex, making changes. So let's go for crapness, but we go to reset all values, and let's go to create something like that. So you see that's the crapness. It is useful to create something like a canyon, for example. So we can, you see, rotate it, and then, for example, we can change the shape. Let's say maybe like this, and then you can change again. Maybe you see. So we have possibilities to create what we like. Then we have the island. The island is essentially something in the middle of the shape there. And then we have the undulation. Undulation is useful to create, let's go to use the I value. That's the scaling, so let's go to change this one, and let's go to reset everything to the default value. Okay, so this way you see this one is something similar to dunes. Okay, so if we go to have more cows, and then we can scale the cows, and then you see we have the possibility to make changes, and then again we can change the scaling, and then we can create dunes in this way. For example, just to let you know, the edge fade is on the border, so you see that over the edge of the terrain we can have the fading of the feature. Okay, so it is essentially really simple to create something like that. By the way, I like to go back to everything by default, so we can go from scratch to create something. So the idea is to create, for example, let's say that we have a crackness, and then we go to create something less chaotic, and then let's go to scale it less, and then we go to change the scale there, maybe something like that. You see we are going to change also the shape in this way, so something like that, for example. So something really simple. Okay, and also the light with the right mouse button can be adjusted. So what else? We can start playing with a warp. With a warp we can change and distort everything. So we can go to create a warp. Let's go for a warp noise, and you see that the warp noise is starting to create something. The warp is visible in this way, so you know that you have, for example, the scaling, you have the rotation, you have some more information like the anisotropy to move it over one axis or the other axis, and then you have a lot of parameters about which kind of noise is used. So let's remove this one, and you see that now it is essentially applied, and then we have there the possibility to say how much it is used. So you see that in this way we are warping a lot our terrain, and it is going to go better and better. By the way, I like to use the colorize. We can use the one I created before, so apply this one, and then we can try, for example, to remap the stuff. So let's say I go to create something like that. You see I am just creating a remapping, okay, for our terrain. Let's see if we can change a little bit also there. Maybe we can add this area there. You see that we have again the terrain there, and then let's go for a smooth. Okay, just to create something interesting. In this way we have a different colors, and it is maybe more interesting than before. By the way, the warping is essentially distorting the stuff, but the nice thing is that we can, for example, mask the warping. So with the modulation we can decide, for example, to say, okay, let's use a mask source, and let's say that we like to have this kind of distortion just over a mask shape. The mask shape can show you how the mask is used. So the red is the maximum usage of the mask, and the white is obviously the zero level. We have different shape type. We have, for example, the hemisphere. We have a lot of stuff there that can be used. Let's go with a cone. We can obviously remap, for example, the usage. You see, let's say that it's okay to use this one. Maybe we can decide to have just over this area the mask. Then we remove this one, and then there we have the the output map, you see that this one, the output warp amplitude, is using the map to decide where we like to have the distortion. Okay, so in this way it is disturbing the area with this warp noise just in some areas. And the nice thing is that we can, for example, blend the stuff. So let's say that I like to have another warp, let's say another warp noise, and then we go for, let's say that we like to see this one, and we get to use something different, for example Voronoi. Let's see how it is behaving. Maybe a spiked, but I like to see how it is working on the terrain. Let's find something that can be nice to use. We can change also the scaling to, you see that it is adding a lot of details. So we have a lot of spikes around. Okay, this one can be the generic one, but we like to also use the other one. So let's go in the, for example, this one can have another mask. Let's go to use a mask noise. Okay, you see, maybe we can have less roughness. So this one is working essentially just on some areas. Okay, you see that we are using let's play a little bit with the parameters. Okay, let's say that this one is okay. Okay, I like also to create another heighmap. By the way, let's go in the domain warper and let's blend together the two warps we created. So we can use this one as the background, this one as the foreground, and then the warp is this one. We have to decide how to mix the stuff there. So we can decide, for example, to use an add, and you see that we are adding this one and the other one. Okay, we can do the same, for example, if we use this one as the background and this one as the foreground, then you see that we have essentially the first one and the second one. And the nice thing is that we can decide also to mix using another mask. So that's really amazing because we can decide to mix the stuff in a really complex way. By the way, let's say that this one is okay and I like to create something else. So let's copy this one. First of all, we can pick this one, right mouse button, and then we say create a comment. Let's say that here we have the words. Rename words. Okay, so we have done in the right way also for the graph. Let's connect this one so we see what's going on. Okay, this one is essentially like the previous one, but I like to go for the mountain ridge. And then let's go to have essentially the default value. Maybe we go to change this one, and then let's remove this one. And we go to have something more similar to the basic idea we had before. And then we change a little bit, you see, the parameters. So in this way, you see that we have this kind of stuff. Let's go to create a warp noise also for this terrain. And we can play a little bit with this one, so it is more like a terrain. I like to find something that is nice to to be used. Let's go. And then maybe we can just scale a little bit this one. I like to change also the anisotropy. Let's go to see also there if we can change something else. Maybe you see we can lower with the fading or the border. And then the nice thing is that we can also blend the heighmap. So if we go there in the 8 modifier, we have blend heighmap. We can decide which is the background. Let's say that this one is the background and this one is the foreground, and then we connect the new heighmap and the new heighmap there. Okay, so in the 8 we can decide how much blending we have. We can also offset what we are doing, and sorry, this one, it is not useful actually. And we can decide also to remap the output mask when we are using the output mask, and we have the input remap too. So we can decide, for example, to manipulate the point. And obviously we are not using the mask, sorry, so I was not thinking about it. In the other way, if we use this one as the foreground and this one as the background, in this way you see that it's really similar, but we can decide also for this case that we like to use a mask. And if we go to see the mask, we can decide to use, for example, let's say this one is 2. Okay, maybe we can move it, okay, for example in this area, and rotate, and that's all essentially. So let's see what's going on. You see that it's blending just in this area. Just to be sure, we can rise up to have the right level. And again, you see that is working nice. This one can stay at 0. Obviously, you can play with the way you are going to use together the 2 maps. For the moment, we can go with this one, and this adding the second one. So we can say, for example, that this one, the altitude is higher, and the same thing can be done with the warp. So you see that it's going to be more complex. Okay, we can decide, for example, to choose, for example, how to merge, because we can decide to create, let's say, a new base heighmap, this one, and let's say that this one is maybe not a cliff. Let's go for a base, but we got to have a really low scale. Okay, and we got to have a warp. Okay, and this warp will be something like spiked, or maybe let's see what we can go to use. Maybe still this one. Let's go for something you see really roughness. Okay, we can go again to blend. So let's say blend heighmap. Let's say that this one is the background, this one is the foreground, this one is connected there, and again to the heighmap. It is going to use the, you see, to use this one everywhere, and we don't like to have something like that. So we have again the mask, and we can decide, for example, to use the slope. If we go to see the slope, we need also let's go to have a little bit more space, an heighmap to the side, which is the area we have to use. Okay, so you see that we are going to use this one, and let's try to remap. You see just the slope area. Let's go out, and then you see that we have the blended just over there, and we can decide to have it just a little bit. Okay, so when we go to change how this one is behaving, for example, for the base we are creating using a different warp, or for example different scaling, you see that we are going to play just with this area. And that's really interesting, because we have the possibility to play with just some areas around without the need to create something more complex. That's really lovable. And then just to have something more interesting, let's move the masking there. We have the heighmap. Let's go to move this one there. Let's move all this stuff there. Okay, and this one can stay there. Okay, in this way, for example, we can decide to pick everything there and say, create a comment, and here we have the heighmap. Nice. And then last thing, we can go there and say, let's add the atmosphere, and let's add, for example, the fog. That's really interesting. Constraint to the terrain, so it is just there. You see that it's going to create something more and more interesting. Let's go for a lower density. We can rise up the resolution of the texture. Let's go to rise up the resolution of the terrain. And it is amazing what we are going to create. Let's go to rise really high value. Okay, that's nice, guys. The idea was to create something really simple. That's our first terrain, and we are going to play with this one to create more interesting stuff, understanding how the mask and the modulation works, how the warp scale works, and more and more and more. So let's use this one as a basic way to play with GeoGen in the coming videos. So guys, for this video, that's all. We created our first terrain. We started to play with the heighmaps, blending the heighmaps, using the warps, understanding how to mask the warps, or also the blending between the heighmaps. So it was really an interesting way to play with GeoGen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you really soon for a new tutorial about GeoGen, and this free courseware for you.